Hey, all my Capricorn friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today with your September 2024 monthly horoscope. These horoscopes are based on whole sign Western astrology. So when I'm talking about Capricorn, I'm talking about Capricorn ruling the first house and dictating the landscape of the chart. This is also applicable to Capricorn Sun and Capricorn Moon. And if you have 3 or more personal planets in Capricorn, this video is for you as well. When I refer to a day and a time, it's based on the Pacific time zone, so please adjust for your location. The month starts off with Uranus in your 5th house. The 5th house is naturally ruled by Leo, and it is filled with fun and entertainment and creativity and laughter and parties and social activities and romance. The 5th house is the most enjoyable house of the zodiac. And then we have this Taurus energy overlaid on it for Capricorn, saying that you probably enjoy a good meal. You enjoy expressing yourself potentially through food and through interior design, using your skills, your voice. And if for some reason, Capricorn, you have been not addressing your 5th house needs for enjoyment and pleasure, Uranus has been in this house, sort of bringing in unexpected situations, dynamics, and people to illuminate balance. We also know that Pluto has been going through your 1st house since forever, it feels like, breaking things up. I believe it was 2008. I didn't put that in my notes, so don't quote me. We do have this dynamic, this trine between Uranus and Pluto, giving you an opportunity to see the wisdom of fun, to see how you can use and build upon your skills when you're enjoying yourself versus just doing something out of duty and out of obligation. The 1st and the 5th house and the 9th house actually are called Dharma houses, and they hold reward for past lives and past deeds, good deeds done. And Capricorn also rules history. Taurus rules a sense of history. So you have been getting an opportunity to really dig deep into any psychological dynamics that make you feel a sense of fear, trepidation, and again, obligation, duty that is out of balance, to allowing yourself your own personal expression, your own genius, your own, future. Like, what do you want in the way of your future? How do you want your life to look down the line? And will it be fun? And are you building that in a way that utilizes your skills and your talents? Because Uranus is offering you a whole new world, basically, and so is Pluto. But Pluto is breaking something up. It is literally destroys something and then it rebuilds it in better. And Uranus looks to the future for that. So this is a very favorable aspect. Both of these planets are in a sextile to Neptune. Those planets are going to be in conversation for years to come as they move into their new signs. But right now, I think this is important because it supports an underbelly. The having Neptune in Pisces is giving you an opportunity to really dig down into how you think, and are you connected to spirit? Are you creating a strong base with your own creativity, or are you potentially using your duty as a way of avoiding those things, or avoiding the vulnerability of your own wants and desires? Your ruling planet is currently transiting your 3rd house. It will be there until 2026. And from my perspective as an intuitive astrologer, your planet is very much wanting to build upon the spiritual principles that Pisces has to offer. And that's a sense of intuition, a connection to my ancestors, the ones that not only lived on the planet, but also those that watch over me from the other side. It gives me an opportunity to sit in quiet reflection and really hone my skills and the things that how I approach my creative endeavors. That 3rd house is a very busy house, and the Pisces energy is a very quiet energy. So I feel as if Saturn is calling forth an energy of getting busy with the business of being quiet and taking time to nurture and empower and to let your creative juices blossom. Again, the fifth house holds some creativity. The third house naturally holds intellect, but here in communications, but here we're talking about the Piscean energy overlaid, which is very dreamy and very it can dream of the future. I want to use the words fantasy, but not in a way like you're delusional, although Pisces does rule delusion. But here, this is Capricorn getting an opportunity to dream about how life could be and start to really experience the transformations that Pluto will offer you as it breaks down these old structures over the next few months or illuminates them, and then moves back into Aquarius to liberate you in your second house. Now we see that Pluto and Mars are in a quincunx, which is not easy, but this is this is where there's this Gemini is your sixth house of work. It's your house of your mental health because it rules your daily habits and your stress level. It rules your work, your employment. Here, this quincunx is a blind spot for me. And it's a weird spot. It's like where I feel a sense of knowing something and not knowing it at the same time. I always equate it to sort of driving down a road and knowing I'm going to make a turn, but I'm not sure where that turn is going to go or how sharp or how wide it will be and what's coming the other way. This is what this feels like to me. And it's very much involving the mind, how I think, because Mars is in the sign of Gemini. Gemini is in the sign of your sixth house. I'm sorry. Yes, Gemini is your sixth house, and that is the house that's naturally ruled by Mercury and Virgo. So this is a very mental house. This last degree of the 0 degree of Pluto is very psychologically deep in how it's erupting, it's excavating that unconscious frustration and anger of wanting to assert myself but not knowing what's holding me back. We see also that Pluto is supporting Venus as she has entered her rulership, and she is on the supergalactic center, which is actually at 2 degrees, 22 minutes of Libra. And here she really gets to evaluate the relationship she has with herself and her creativity and her sense of money and comfort and security, her friendships, her partnerships. And she is conjunct the South Node, which is now asking me to be egoless about how others will respond to the epiphanies I have about the underbelly of power and control over me that I don't necessarily see with my naked eye, but I again want to be liberated from. I no longer want to feel tethered to an old story. This is Taurus again. It rules your personal history that fueled your self-confidence. And then we have a supporting role here with Neptune. And, while your ruling planet is not necessarily in a good aspect to Pluto because it's a half square, this would be the power of obligation, duty, authority, and all the things that we say restrict us. I can't because I have to, blah, blah, blah. That's just the beginning of the day. By the end of the day, by about 6 p.m., we'll see Pluto retrograde back into your first house. So it really feels like a powerful day of these outer planets. They've been stationing, they've been, meaning they've been like standing still in the sky, sort of announcing their next move, like, watch me do this. And now we see that Pluto is, here in your first house. This is going to this is going to happen until November 19th. And then it will get back into Aquarius, where it will stay until 2043. So that's pretty big deal, because it's going to change all the potentials you have for making money, for expressing your voice, for natural second house things. There could be, a real rewrite of your personal history, liberating yourself from it. It could be an expression of your genius. You could start to understand that when you feel a sense of nervousness, that you're potentially falling into a bigger sense of obligation that is not aligned to your heart. We serve humanity best by being an example of balance between caring for others and self-care. And there can be a big imbalance in the Capricorn energy of either being too dutiful to a situation and diminishing yourself because you feel fear or repression, or standing so much in leadership that you can become cold and unfeeling. We also see that at this time, I'm going to click on Pluto. Pluto is in the moon here at 28 degrees is in a quincunx, and there is Mars still in a quincunx with Pluto, but now Pluto is the focus. So this evening could be filled with things that really come up on an emotional level, wanting to sort of really, I guess I want to offer it this way. For Capricorn, Leo is your 8th house. So this could be a revisit of potentially where other people's money or your responsibility to their money, you've been standing in leadership in some way, and now there could be something that's no longer completely authentic to what you want. It could have still remnants of authenticity, but your transformation and your growth could potentially have again outlived the situation. And so we still have the moon just adds an emotional level to that. Now, on the next day, on the 2nd, at 6:55 p.m., we're going to see a new moon in Virgo. Virgo is your 9th house Capricorn it's a business house. And with the Virgonian energy, I think it's very much focused on work and on the 9th house rules foreign people, foreign travel, education, higher education, the Supreme Court, but it also rules publishing, writing, branding, influencing today, getting out on these platforms. This is an opportunity to plant the seeds for something that you really would like to birth within yourself, moving some sort of, it could be right now a side hustle that turns into something greater. Again, I mentioned earlier that the 1st, the 5th, and the 9th houses are houses that represent dharma, which is a reward for good deeds done in previous incarnations. And I know that might sound like, well, wow, well, how do I know what my reward is going to be? You get to create it yourself. And that's the beauty of this, really taking into consideration the 11th degree gives you an opportunity to think about how you process intellectually. And maybe the Pluto transit through your 1st house will bear fruits in a way you hadn't initially expected. If you could, open or start some sort of internet type thing and it could blossom. I'm just saying that because you have an opportunity to, in your 2nd house of Aquarius, make money through broad concepts that contribute to humanity, and your personal transformation from maybe feeling inside a box, that box of duty and obligation of being of leadership, but leadership that doesn't stand for my heart. It stands for a system that we might have all outgrown at this point. So I think that's really powerful. And I think that this new moon gives you an opportunity to really hunker down and revisit whether or not your ruling planet is, I want to offer it this way, Capricorn. Saturn could be considered extremely dry here and very unemotional. And because Pisces can be so emotional that I think it can be a turnoff to Saturn. But I've been really thinking of it as something different, giving it, because at the times that we're in and the idea that Pluto's moving into Aquarius, there's liberation for us all in some way. There's a more authentic birthing of our life experience and the soul's energy within that. So I believe Saturn's been asking us to root into our spiritual practices. And this could be something where obligation and duty seem to get in the way of that. But your intention to set that as a priority can then bring in these other aspects to support that. Okay, now we're going to see on the 4th that Mars is going to move into Cancer. And Cancer is your 7th house of partnerships. And where's Mars? Where'd it go? Oh, there he is. Mars is not in its best here in Cancer. It's in fall, where it's in exaltation in Capricorn. In fall, it can feel not respected. It can feel not heard or listened to. Others might not take me seriously. And when we're looking at your seventh house of partnerships, there could be a feeling of your transformation is falling on deaf ears. Now we see that Mars is a focal point to a T-square. And when we go here, we see the T-square is really here to Neptune. It's a loose T-square to the nodes, but Neptune and the moon. And I think that this is about, could potentially be that you have transformed in many ways, and you're hoping that those that you love and that are your roots, the people that are your people. I know this is your seventh house, but this also includes the people that you have professional relationships with, contractual professional relationships with, as well as your sense of peace and harmony and diplomacy and balance. And you could be feeling a sense of frustration because, you know, your transformation is not been embraced just yet. You know, maybe there's some people who, and I also want to say this because Mars, it's like there's sort of this combination of fire and water making steam. Now, steam can just piss someone off, or it can literally fuel an engine. And I think that this idea of fueling the engine of, you know, creating that sense of peace and harmony and further nurturing your intuitive energies will then serve your partnerships even better. But again, it's not the easiest transit for Mars because Mars likes to move fast. He's not exactly a water baby. And this is a very emotional sign. And Mars isn't always like, Mars does not always like to be emotional unless it's angry. So that's a little bit of a challenge for our Mars. We have Mercury re-entering Virgo on the 9th. And I think this is significant because, let me cast the chart. Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit in time. I'm going to go back to 12 o'clock. Because this is extremely significant, because this is the third time that Mercury has formed a yod with Pluto and Neptune. A yod is called the finger of God, and the apex, being Mercury, is the focal point of the opportunity. And this is the monkey mind, it's the everyday mind, it's the media, it is short bits of information. It's not having all the information sometimes because it moves too quickly. Now, we're doubling down on this energy right here because Mercury is not only in rulership here, Mercury is exalted in Virgo. So Mercury is processing and strategizing and learning and assessing, and not only being of service, but here being of mental service, organizing and making sure things are efficient. Now, Mercury is blindsided by the quincunx to emotional Pluto and emotional Neptune. Pluto being more the malefic emotions, those dark emotions that sit underneath us, and then the feelings of wanting to escape that that Neptune can on its challenging side. So this third time around is giving Mercury an opportunity to look a little bit deeper into what do I really believe? Because again, this is the 9th house for you. It's that Dharma house. And as you start to allow the revolution of your mind, the square to Uranus in your 5th house of creativity is opening up options for you, but you're going to have to be maybe a little rebellious, and people might be used to you being either in a box and not shifting, or maybe thinking that you're not good enough. I mean, the dark side of Capricorn can be very inhibiting and repressive and obligatory in not a fun way. And yet this mind is being supported by the bravery of Mars in this sextile. Bravery to go into the emotional emotional body and slowly swim through it so that I understand it more, so that when I come into this energy moving forward, I'm more willing to express myself authentically and then to create and build upon that. Capricorn is an amazing builder. So now Mercury, now we go to the 17th where we have our first eclipse. This is a partial lunar eclipse. It's happening at 7:34 p.m. Pacific time. It is happening at 25 degrees of Pisces and it is conjunct Neptune. A full moon, this is a full moon illuminating something. And yet at the same time, the partial eclipse is saying only half of it is being revealed. And I think that this is an important thing to be mindful of, because this is essentially the moon is in your third house again of how you think, the media, the information, this. I want to kind of offer it this way because it feels super foggy to me. It feels as if there could be things that you were thinking were going one direction and now they feel maybe that they're not. The sun here is illuminating something that makes me feel as if there's a deception of some kind, or a fog, or a blurry line, or maybe an inner knowing that I've been ignoring. And now this is being really illuminated. And the eclipse is offering me a process of walking through it over this next, like, eclipses have a 6-month influence, they say. I mean, oftentimes the timeline is blurred on either side, but things could transpire over the next 6 months that relate and directly to this eclipse. Geez, my words. Where is Mercury in my chart right now? So I also think that the advantage of this full moon is those that have been applying their spiritual principles, as Saturn has asked us to do, as your ruling planet has, then you will be able to harness your mind and direct it more clearly and more focused towards your practice, whether it be repeating affirmations or going into some sort of meditation, even potential of rhythmic drumming of some kind. Pisces has a very ancestral energy to it. Capricorn rules history. I just feel like getting into maybe even some sort of primal ritual would help anchor in the energy and the information that comes through at this time. Let's just click on the sun. We see that the sun is making favorable aspects to both Pluto and Uranus. Uranus is making a trine to Pluto. So this, to me, speaks of an awareness of that underbelly and the beginnings of the incorporation, aka liberation there from it. When we click on the moon, we see that we have favorable aspects again to Pluto and to Uranus, but we have a little bit of a challenge over here with Venus. Now, Venus happens to be on the fixed star Spica at the time of this eclipse. And the fixed star Spica is a very fortuitous star that represents the voice of the angels. So I really think that the solution to whatever the illumination is comes from your connection to spirit, your team anchoring in there and making a regular some sort of schedule. And I don't mean it has to be rigid. It's just something so that you can build the language. It's kind of like when you first get a new dog and you're training it, you're learning how it thinks and how it communicates, even though you don't speak the same language. That is what is potentially being offered here, but you can't see it with your eyes. You can only feel it with your heart. Remember, Neptune and Venus are best friends. Venus is in her rulership on the voice of angels, and she may not be able to see the solution to whatever the illumination is, but there is support from the other side for its transformation. Now, Capricorn, we go to the 22nd, when the sun will move into Libra. I'm going to move this back to 12 o'clock. Libra is your 10th house of career. I didn't mention that earlier. So that's pretty important to remember while Venus is traveling through there, because it really gives you an opportunity to stand in the limelight with your new sense of peace and harmony and cooperation, but yet still your sense of self being held high. So here, as the sun is entering Libra, we see that Venus will also enter Scorpio later in the day. When Venus enters Scorpio, she's actually going into her detriment. And detriment is where you tend to feel a little out of control. Things feel uncomfortable. There's a lack of ease. And here, Venus can be just a little bit jealous and possessive if given the right recipe for that. She'll start to smell stuff if there's deceptions and lies in her world, and she won't like it, and she'll start to act out. And we see that evidenced by the square and a half to Saturn and the quincunx to Neptune and the square to Pluto. So Scorpio is actually your 11th house. That represents the future. It represents technology. It represents the cosmic consciousness and the World Wide Web. And having that be Scorpio, you could be very aware of the power of the input that is given to us via the 11th house activities. And this tension here that Venus is experiencing is calling forth a deeper inner knowing. I can't help but see the 29 reduces down to an 11. Here we have Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn, your first house. We have Neptune at 28 degrees, which reduces down to a 1. So we've got this 1, 1, 1. We actually have 5 ones. And that's really a call to how am I thinking? What am I focusing in on? And then Saturn, your ruling planet in the 3rd house, is at the 14th degree, which is the Venusian degree. So the focus is really on creating structure for my liberation. We also see that this reduces down to a 5, and there are 2 5s. This is at 55 minutes. So there's an opportunity through your diligence and endurance in being mindful of how am I thinking? What am I focusing in on? Am I letting you're going to default to a certain way of thinking, but you're just the awareness of that default then starts to shift things back in a more I want to say productive direction, because you want to move towards what you want to experience, your hopes and your dreams, that joy of interacting through your creativity. I hope that made sense. Okay, now this is the other thing that's so powerful about Venus. I should click back on her, but give me just a second. On the 24th, she is going to be on the Shapley attractor, which is part of the Shapley cluster. This is a point in that cluster where there's a release of false attachments. There is a bringing to the surface of any unconscious influences that are keeping me from my power, from my expression, from my dreams, really. Anything happening behind the scenes, and it's making a square to Pluto, and Pluto rules Scorpio. So this feels extremely challenging, because this might be where you're feeling your own imprint about how much you believe in your hopes and your dreams, and if they're viable and possible. And because having that 11th house, while it does represent this bigger consciousness, Scorpio by nature rules that psychology that's almost criminal. It's manipulative. And this may illuminate where you or the groups you're interacting with are inadvertently manipulating you or triggering old things that you no longer want to experience, and you're ready to move past or to integrate into your everyday experience and your intuitions and your willingness to trust that emotional part of you, that part of you that's wanting to create peace and harmony, a sense of balance in your life, right? Cancer is your 7th house, and it's not just people, it's a vibration. This is where we see policemen and lawyers in the 7th house, and this is the house of Cancer, which is home and hearth and intuition. Now let's go to the 26th, where Mercury will enter Libra. first things I heard in my head is was sweet talker. Here we see Mercury is right next to the sun. Mercury is always close to the sun, but here, what I'm thinking is because we have that super galactic center at 2 degrees, 22 minutes of Libra, we're looking at the relationship that you have with your career, the relationship you have with the view of how the public perceives you and your reputation. And I think this is an opportunity to be egoless, to maybe the monkey mind as you allow your ambitions and your true sense of joy and sense of purpose to come through. Yes, we do see the challenge here between, Venus is still in a square with Pluto. She's still feeling the moon a bit here in this square, but at the same time, Mercury's gone through a lot of reflection here. And as Mercury becomes more discerning, this could also be, when we look at Mercury, we see an opposition here to Neptune, which very much can represent this things behind closed doors, things that are secretive, things that are not always in my best interest. This is your third house, and this is the ruler of the natural third house, Mercury. So I know it sounds a little confusing, but Gemini naturally rules the third house. So I think this is a little bit of a tension between the monkey mind and it being slightly eclipsed by how I want to be perceived in my public eye, how I want people to get on board with my ideas, and what is my inner knowing, what is my intuitive knowing that may really sort of trigger Capricorn into wanting to default into the duty and obligation and into the herd mentality. And I think Pluto's saying, no, stand up and stand up proud for your individuality. Now let's go to the last day of the month. Let me click off of Mercury. And here the month ends kind of with some nice aspects. We'll always have the nodes in opposition. The moon is temporarily in opposition to Saturn at this time, but overall we're looking at some favorable aspects. We've got Mars and Venus now speaking nicely to each other. We have them in a harmonious aspect, especially Mars and Saturn to one another, with Saturn as the focal point of this sort of grand trine, if you will. And yet I think that, oops, sorry, goofed. I meant to go up here. I think this is where we start to see the evolved version of Mars is as Saturn influences it in a way that is more like a shaman, or like a wise elder, or like Yoda to Luke Skywalker. And here, by the time Mars has gone halfway through Cancer, he's learning how to be a warrior on the seas. He's learning how that, things ebb and flow. And this is what Mars has been first, spent so much time here learning about the mind. Now it's learning about the emotions, and then it's going to implement those to transform and to uplift and to allow you to really feel that sense of transformation within your personal human experience. And on a note, just we see Mercury and the Sun are here at 8 degrees of Libra exact in an opposition to the North Node. This could very much, to me, bring up things in the news, in the media, that bring my attention or compel me in some way to stand for balance. And this might be your own mental balance. This could very well be I've got to shut out the media right now, otherwise I'm going to go bonkers. The United States is in unprecedented presidential election season, and I think we're just beginning the ride right now. As I film this, it's early August, and we have yet to experience the Democratic National Convention. That's going to be next week. All right, my Capricorn friends, that's it for me for September of 2024. Fasten your seatbelt. We're going into some exciting times of transformation and renewal. And before renewal can happen, we've got to, gut the old structure and get out all the termites and any rot that is in the foundation. And that's what Pluto is doing. And God bless Pluto. We'll do our best to make it an easy ride. If you like what you've heard, please like, please subscribe, please share. Join me Sunday mornings, 11 a.m. Pacific time. That's where I come and do a live stream, and we pull a tarot card and we do an angel reading for each sign to get the angel's advice for traversing the transits the week ahead. Okay, that's it for me. If you want to book a reading, please, my information is below and I'm available. And have a great September. I'll see you in October.